They say it gets into your soul, and once you leave, you long to return. This week on Wild Talk, we're talking Africa. I'm joined by TJ Schwanky and Vanessa Harrop from Outdoor Quest, and Sue Tidwell, author of Cries of the Savannah. This is an exciting chat about wildlife conservation, realities of the hunt, the myths, and just how important it is for wildlife, the economy, and the animals themselves. Later, we're joined by our friend Kate Rundle for a social segment and Prime G5. Next on Wild Talk. We are back with more Wild Talk. I'm your host, Steve Hamilton.
We are back at it for another social segment on Wild Talk.
Wild Talk is brought to you by Aventura, Timber Stove, Hornady, and Wild TV Plus.
All right, welcome back to another exciting episode of Wild Talk. Tonight is going to be something special, I think. We're joined by TJ Schwanky and Vanessa Harrop of Outdoor Quest. So TJ, Vanessa, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us, Stephen. Vanessa does say I'm special, by the way.
Let's dig right into it. The origins of Outdoor Quest. TJ, what made you start it?
Well, about 30 years ago, I started doing a fishing show for a cable network in Regina. Didn't know anything about television or anything else, so I kind of used it as an opportunity to kind of really learn the industry. So more on the technical side, I learned running the camera, I learned editing. I learned as much as I possibly could because I definitely wasn't making any money at it. So there had to be some good reason for it. And then after about 5 years of that, just found out that my true passion has always been hunting. And was working a fair bit with Richard Mellon at the time on some other projects, and kind of said to Rich, hey, I think we've got an opportunity here to start a hunting television show. So went down to SHOT Show, kind of pitched the idea at Outdoor Channel at the time. There was no network in Canada at the time. So that was, almost, I guess, maybe 26 years ago. So, and they were like, yeah, we, definitely be interested in seeing a trailer. So put a trailer together, and I guess the rest, as they say, is history. That was, so yeah, we're just airing our 25th season this year.
Did you ever expect it to run 25 years?
I wouldn't say I didn't. I don't think I've ever got into a project that I didn't think had a long-term future in it. I don't know if 25 was a number or anything like that, but yeah, I definitely got into it for the long term. And then Vanessa joined us about 18 years ago, and she had a bit of an interesting join too. That was, I'll let her take it.
Yeah, I joined in about 2005, and I joined as someone who'd never hunted before in their lives and never filmed either before in my life. So there was like a huge learning curve for me as far as hunting and also filming. And it was a little stressful at the start.
Vanessa, what was one of the hardest parts about being, I guess, an adult on-set hunter?
When you're joining a television show as well as learning to be a hunter, you're trying to do everything right. Mm-hmm. Hunting, you don't have a second chance. And it's like, oh, take two, that didn't work. You've got to get it right. So it was very, very stressful in the beginning to make sure I got it right and to learn as much as I could.
And she still underplays her knowledge. She is definitely one of the most accomplished hunters I know. And every day she's like, I don't know anything. I don't know how to do this. But so it's been kind of cool that way, though. I think nowadays we see, with social media and things like that, we kind of see a lot of instant celebrities. But, back then it was, you were on TV, people were watching, and you wanted to be exactly who you were. So I think that was the cool thing we did from the beginning. And I think a lot of viewers have really identified with that. And I think hunting as a couple has been really cool. Like, we have so many couples, like when we go to a show or something like that, it's pretty well all couples that come up to us and, we love your journey. We love what you guys do. And so for us, that's been super cool.
Oh, totally. You can just see, for lack of a better term, the chemistry on screen between you two. And it's tough enough to find a hunting partner that you can trust your life to, let alone live with outside of what is work. Vanessa, this is one that I've been dying to talk to you about, the muskox. Was this something when you started your hunting journey, your hunting career, that you said, you know what, I want to get a muskox? Or was that just something that TJ said, hey, this might be kind of fun? And because I know you guys love to grab hunts on a whim. So the muskox, was that something that you said, I want to do this, or it just kind of fell in your lap?
Interestingly enough, it wasn't something on my bucket list right from the start of my career. TJ does have a muskox, and we have talked many times about your journey on your muskox and how cold and uncomfortable it was. And he said there are other ways of hunting them, and I've always thought they're a really cool animal. But it wasn't until he actually got his Grand Slam, and he was entering it in Grand Slam Club Ovis, and he discovered this Super 10 award. And he quickly did the math, and he's like, I've had my Super 10 for how many years was it?
I think since 1996.
So I said, well, I wonder how close I am. So quickly went through and made a list, and I only need one animal left. And it's either a bison or a muskox. So we'd already talked about us potentially going and doing a muskox hunt either in Greenland or so. Yeah, it was like, okay, let's make some plans. Let's try and make this work. So,
but if we take that story right back to the beginning, what was the very first animal you ever took?
So yeah, my very, very first animal I ever took was Central Barren Brown Caribou in the Northwest Territories, less than 100 kilometers from where I took my muskox. So what was very, very cool about that whole journey of getting my Super 10 was it started and ended, and it came full circle.
Was it number 4 of all time?
Number 4 Boone and Crockett all time, and number 2 rifle in SCI.
So what did it score? You say number 4 of all time. What was the closest animal to it, like ahead of it, or what was the distance?
I think you were about an inch and a half off of world record. Like it was very close.
Yeah.
And hers actually scored quite large in a couple areas, and just probably had more deductions other than, Boone and Crockett being based on symmetry. So, I mean, it didn't score enough to be world record, but it definitely could have been. She did try to kill it with her bow for probably the 2 or 3 hours. And it would have been number 1 archery, but just there was no way we could get close enough. And there was probably about 60 kilometer an hour winds the day we were hunting. So, I mean, she would have had to get within 20 meters or so, and it just wasn't going to happen.
TJ, we can talk about you on this one. I know you love that.
About time.
Let's pivot to a topic again that our viewers are going to know about you if they've watched even one season of Outdoor Quest, and that's Africa. What's the draw?
Boy, it's a magical place. It really is. I had zero interest in hunting Africa. I really did.
It'd been my lifelong dream, even before I hunted, to go to Africa.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know, like it's an old man's hunt. So I said, okay, if I'm going, it has to be 100% free range. We have to do this. So I made it so difficult that there was no way we were ever going to find an outfitter to do it. So we went down to Safari Club Convention in 2007, talked to 44 different African outfitters, and found 2 that could actually do everything we wanted. And I'm like, okay. So I ended up booking with one of them, and just got the bug. Like, they say you're planning your next trip on your flight home, and it was 100% true. We were, it was 3 years in between our first trip and our second trip. But so we've been on 12 different hunts in Africa in 3 different countries. And so we're going for number 13 here in April. So I don't know what it is. I mean, we kind of look at it, and I was trying to explain to some people the other day, and I don't really know if I explained it that well, but for us, it's kind of like going to an all-inclusive in Mexico, except we get to hunt. I think a lot of people go over there and start, collecting all the different animals, which is fair. Like, we've shot a lot of different animals over there and try to add 1 or 2 every time we go. But for us, it's just become about the hunt over there. And, we found the one place we're actually returning to this time. He's got quite a bit of free range hunting, which when you tell people there's free range hunting in Africa, they'll call bull on you, but there is. Down in the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal, there's actually a fair bit of actual free range hunting. It's low fenced sheep and cattle ranches. And kudu and eland run around there like whitetails and, elk do just west of us here at home. So we've kind of really fallen in love with that. So, we hunt kudu, we hunt eland every time we go there. Not to say we take one, but they're always on the list. They're animals that are endemic to that area. They've been there long before man. They've adapted to farming, and just like our deer and stuff have here. And the terrain there is amazing. It's mountainous, it's big hills, it's big valleys. So like for us being foothill and mountain hunters, it's just like being at home, except you look at 100 animals every day. So I think that's part of it. I don't know what draws you there.
There's a saying: when you go to Africa, you lose a piece of your soul. You have to keep returning, but we never seem to find that lost piece. So,
but we keep going back to look.
For me, it's weird. I think because it was a lifelong dream. Whenever the plane lands, I feel like I'm home.
You've got that bug in me. You tell that story so well. I'm going to a couple of banquets over the next couple of months, and I always keep my eyes open for those deals. I put in some hefty bids last year at a banquet, and it was just a little bit out of my price range, but it's getting to that point where I've got to do it at least once, and I know it won't be once.
Yeah, like fool yourself now, but it won't be. So.
Yeah. The very first time we went to Namibia, and we went for a month thinking, this is the one and only time we're going to go to Africa, so we better go for a month. And we knew as soon as we were on the plane to come home that we were definitely going back again. Yeah.
And from a television perspective, I mean, it's great for us. So we do pretty much all spot and stock hunting there. Mm-hmm. So it's your classic, get up high, spot, stock. So it's really classic hunting, but it's a target rich environment. And I mean, it's, on a 10-day hunt, it's not uncommon to, take 8 animals or so. So from a TV's perspective, it's great. Mm-hmm. The money we invest to go there to hunt it comes back in 4 or 5 shows. I mean, we may go for a 2 or 3 week sheep hunt here and not get an episode out of it. So, that's obviously been a little bit of the push for us to go. And, we keep using that excuse. Oh, it's good for TV. It's good for TV. I mean, really, we would go regardless of doing TV or not. But it's awesome. And we've taken so many first time people to Africa. And I think it's almost a little bit selfish when we do that. You'll never look at Africa again the same way you do through fresh eyes. Yeah. And just to watch people experience it. We took a good friend of ours last year. She didn't hunt or anything. She just wanted to go to Africa because she got tired of us talking about it so much. So she just came along as an observer, actually with a big group. And the very first afternoon we got there, we kind of got settled in our rooms and everything. And then we went out and sat in a bow blind. The very first animal that came into the blind was a giraffe. Oh, and like you could just see, like she was just, so
she's got her phone out and she's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. And so we thought, being that she's not a hunter, that she wouldn't be out with us like every day, that she'd probably stay at the lodge and relax by the pool and maybe read a book. Or she was out with us every day. She really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know. And in some ways, like when you first start going, it's like being 6 years old again, because you don't know what any of the bugs are. You don't know what any of the trees are. You don't know what any of the animals are. Like, is that a female kudu, or like, what is that? So just having that feeling again it's so cool. And when we compare it to North American hunts nowadays, it's so affordable too. Mm-hmm. Like, it's no secret North American hunts are getting very, very expensive. And I mean, for what you pay for somebody, not us here, but we can do it on resident tag, but for what somebody would come to Alberta to pay for a mule deer hunt, you mm-hmm. can go to Africa and take 8 animals and eat well and be treated well. So it's super affordable, good value. And it's just, I don't know, we like exotic things. We like the different. And I mean, Africa's definitely been one of our passions, but we're always looking for that next adventure.
What's been your favorite, this might be a hard one, but what's been your favorite country to visit for hunting?
That is a hard one. And
it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges. Like,
makes sense.
Everywhere has been special for us.
Yeah. Like, I love Namibia. It's one of the least populated countries in the world. It's still full of wild places. There's still fairly traditional tribal people there, like the Himba people and stuff like that. So I've always had a really special place for Namibia. We've gone there twice, and we might be going back in 2026.
Well, you're going back.
Yeah, we are. So yeah, we booked a hunt in 2026 when we were at Safari Club. So it's just, that's definitely been one of my favorite countries to visit.
Do you know what you're chasing in 26?
Well, yeah, there may be an elephant on the list. So our outfitter actually, it's kind of a cool story, and it's a story I've wanted to tell on television for a long time because hunting of elephants is probably the most controversial thing you could ever do, and to air it on television is like I guarantee we're going to get letters.
Sure.
But it's kind of a cool story. We're going to be hunting non-exportable elephants. So it's even if we wanted to, and even if Trudeau would let us, we can't bring the ivory home. And that was never an issue because I really didn't care about that. I just wanted to go experience the elephant hunt. But we're going to be hunting problem elephants that, caused the villagers problems there. And we're in an area in Namibia that has very high elephant population, the excessive definitely. And Namibia is kind of one of those countries. It's the absolute best news story about conservation. They have done such a good job with their animals there over the years, and hunting has always been part of their conservation philosophy. So kind of hopefully we can tell that story well. I mean, to me, elephants are magnificent animals, and it's not like I want to go murder one, but I want to be part of this conservation story. And break it down to the fact, like, if you shoot a white-tailed doe in your backyard, it's the same conservation story as taking an elephant in Namibia. When it's cool, the village we're going to, they do a big festival every year, and part of the festival is having an elephant to eat. So the elephant we take will be, and the tag's actually called a festival tag. Oh. And so it's to take an elephant for their festival, but also an elephant that's causing problems. So we're going at a time of year when the problem elephants are really common. And by problem elephants, I mean, there's agriculture there like there is here. And, we know what farmers complain when they get elk in their path, one of their grain fields here. Well, can you imagine a herd of elephants in your grain fields? I just did a little research the other day, and one elephant eats 350 pounds of food a day. So times that by 100.
Yeah. So you're not only contributing to conservation, you're feeding a village, you're stopping what is essentially depredation, and you're immersing yourself in the culture. So
well, and bringing a ton of revenue to a very impoverished part of the world. I mean, elephant hunts aren't cheap no matter how you look at it. And most of that money stays with the community. So that's the other good thing. I mean, we've hunted Namibia a couple of times, and I think that's why it's special. I took a giraffe in Namibia in 2017, was it? Thereabouts anyways, and it was a wild free ranging giraffe on one of the conservancies. Yeah, so we took that whole giraffe to a boarding school, and the cooks were literally crying when we showed up with this meat. They hadn't had meat for the kids in 2 weeks, so the kids had been living on maize, corn, and now they had 1,000 pounds of meat or whatever there was on a giraffe. And just to see that, but that school had been built with $100, and this was a very arid part of Namibia. Like, it was the place where we're at was called Sesfontein and Seven Springs, and there's basically 7 springs and several hundred square miles on this place. So water was huge there, and $100 are paid to drill wells there. And I don't know, until you go see some of this stuff, you really can't appreciate it. And we've tried to tell the story quite a few times on television, and I don't know, a lot of times maybe people don't believe it, or it doesn't come across as impactful as being there. But I mean, we took money to an orphanage, that one trip too, and they bought desks for their schools and things like that. And it's not like we're special doing that or doing that strictly for TV. I mean, there's hundreds of hunters doing that, every year going to Africa.
Yeah, and that's got to kind of give you goosebumps in a good sort of way. I think that's a perfect way to end it, guys. So thanks for joining me on Wild Talk. Can't wait to see what the next couple of seasons hold for Outdoor Quest.
Oh, and we're thrilled to be back on Wild TV. We broadcast on Wild TV the very first day, 20 years ago that Wild TV broadcast. We were on it. And we're back this year after a little bit of a hiatus from Wild, and we couldn't be more thrilled. Everybody's treated us so well, and a great way to celebrate our 25th anniversary and help them celebrate their 20th.
Yeah. We got some good stuff in store for the 20th that are coming up.
I know you
do. Sure do. I essentially welcome home.
Thanks for having us on too. Always a pleasure, Steve.
Yo, everybody, welcome back to another social segment here on Wild Talk. We've got some special guests coming up that have actually had some pretty crazy wildlife experiences in the safari. So to stay on theme, the next videos we're going to show are coming at you from the savannah. Let's get it.
There's this locked door.
Alrighty, everybody, let's try something a little bit different here on this social segment. We're going to bring you some myths versus facts. Myth: hunters are the #1 threat to lion populations. No, they're not. Facts are, lion populations depend on hunters to survive. Loss of habitat is the biggest threat to lion populations, and tourist safari hunting actually protects and secures the largest share of lion and prey habitat. The more you know. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed those deadly vids. Stay tuned to see what's coming up next here on Wild Talk.
All right, we're back with more Wild Talk. We are joined by the guys from Prime G5. We got Nate and Brian with us today. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing good, thank you.
Awesome. This is going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. I want to dig right into it. Prime G5. How long have you guys been in business?
We started in 2000, and we started G5 first, and then it was 2011, 2012 when we launched Prime.
What was the inspiration for this? Like, what was the catalyst that said, you know what, there's a hole in this market that needs to be filled?
Well, we were manufacturers first. I'm third generation, and at the time, second generation, my dad brought up bow hunters, outdoorsmen, and he had a process that he came along, the MIM process, that he thought could make a better broadhead. And I jumped on board because I was a soccer player, so small little arms. I couldn't really pull a lot of weight. And so I needed to get through bone better. You know, the heads on the market just weren't working for me. And so we built heads that could go all the way through. That we started there, and it's just been kind of one thing after another. So
so basically what inspired was the fact that you couldn't shoot through the target, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, to be fully transparent, I wasn't making the best shots either. So it wasn't just, you know, obviously people were killing deer before we came along, but it was just, it helped us, you know, stay focused, motivated on trying to do something better. So
And those are always the best products, right? The ones that you go, you know what, there's something there, but we can do it just a little bit better. And that's what you guys seem to have done.
yeah.
Which is great. So what are the most popular preferred products that you offer?
Oh, I mean, we got a bunch now, but Montec, which is our solid 3-blade, that's been one of the troopers since the very beginning. And then we've, in the last couple of years, gotten into mechanicals, which have really skyrocketed for us. The dead meat and the mega meat have really taken over the 3-blade category. So yeah, I mean, we've kind of really held, you know, our edge on fixed blades and mechanicals. So we're pretty excited about that.
The one that
Right.
I've stayed consistent with since beginning, I've ran a bunch of different broadheads, is the Montec. And that always flies very, very true for me, whether or not I'm shooting at foam animals or live ones, and always through and throughs, pass throughs. But the next one I've heard great things about from my friends in the industry is the Mega Meat. Can you dig into that just a little bit?
The dead meat was first. We re-entered with the 3-blade, and to us that was kind of the holy grail for us for just massive wounds, and if that rearward blade technology, if we could just get that to a 3-blade, and you know, we had the T3 and some other heads before, but we really just didn't put the whole package together. And so the Mega Meat, dead meat, when we launched that, was actually kind of through the whole COVID thing, which was kind of awesome. It allowed me, the whole world was shut down for a month, which was awesome because I was back at the shop working all by myself. It was awesome. And that's really was just to perfect that. And so when the guys came back and stuff after that, we really had a lot of time to just focus on that head and just tweak it out and make sure that not only the design was there, but the manufacturing was lined up. But it's a 3-blade mechanical. You can get another flavored 2-inch cut or an 1.5-inch cut. It's rearward sliding head. So the blades move rearward. So they actually want to open. They track really well when they hit the target and all that kind of stuff. And so it's got an awesome snap lock retainer system, so you know it's in place. There's no blade rattle. It's just a great head, and we're getting tons and tons of great feedback. heads there.
Oh,
So
yeah. Like I said, I got some friends in the industry, and they rave about the mega meat, and that's now on my my must get list for that.
So, I mean, you could be a pro or a rookie. It's what you need. Just put such good entrance and exit
yeah,
pulls
yeah.
in every animal.
That's a perfect way of saying it. So, what I want to know, and I'm sure everybody else does, is do you have anything new and exciting coming that we can look forward to?
Well, yeah, actually, we're talking 3 blades, but we can talk 2 blades. We actually launched a new 2 blade today called the T2. So you'll see it on the social media and our website now. And it's a lot like the Mega Meat. It's a rear deploying sliding blade system, but it's very more compact, a little bit. 2 blades tend to be a little bit, more lower profile a little bit. So, but there's a lot of guys that just love 2 blades for having that big slice. And, so we're really happy with both styles. So we're really excited to have now one in each category. But so yeah, it's got the same kind of ball retention system that Nate put in the original Mega Meat and Dead Meat, but it's all internal. So we're really excited to see this one come out. So
I think that's a perfect way to end it. You've got me excited. As soon as we're done here, I'm going to be Googling, trying to look up a little bit more about this and where I can order them. So Nate, Brian, thanks for joining me today on Wild Talk. I look forward to seeing you guys again. All right. So I don't think there's a more contentious topic when it comes to hunting than Africa. So when I first came across you a few years ago on Instagram, I didn't know what to think. As a hunter, we routinely deal with the proverbial wolf in sheep's clothing and of an anti-hunter who tries to put on a brave face to get on the inside. But it didn't take me long to realize that you're the real deal. So Sue Tidwell, thanks for joining me on Wild Talk.
Thank you for having me, Steve. I'm happy to be here.
It's going to be great to catch up with you. So let's get a background on you. Who are you and where are you from?
Well, I live in Idaho now, in rural Idaho, in a town of about 800 people. But I did grow up in the East Coast in Pennsylvania. I did grow up in a deer hunting family, so I never hunted myself, but my dad, my brothers all hunted. So I grew up eating game meat and stuff like that. So I understood hunting to a point and accepted it. Wasn't until the whole Africa thing came involved that I started having questions, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
Let's dig right into that. You
Okay.
mentioned that you had questions about Africa. So what were your thoughts on Africa before you went specifically the hunting side of things?
Well, I always had been in love with Africa ever since I was a kid. And I'm like a lot of people, we have these preconceptions about Africa, and we tend to lump certain animals, we give them more credence than others, I guess. The iconic wildlife, we don't put them in the same category as deer and turkey and elk, the things we're more familiar with. I was one of those people. When my husband, who is a hunter, I married a hunter, when he wanted to go to Africa, I was dying to go, but I had pictured just, a photo safari. I didn't know we'd be sleeping out in the bush, out in the tent with lions roaring outside. But when he went to hunt a zebra and some other wildlife, I really struggled with that. I didn't understand how hunting was conservation in that sense. It wasn't until, like I said, I wanted to go to Africa bad enough that I put on my big girl panties, as I like to say, and I packed a bag and went with Rick to the Tanzanian bush. And it literally changed my life. It changed those 3.5 weeks, changed my whole perception of hunting in Africa. I saw the reality of boots on the ground rather than everything I had it pictured in my mind.
Let's dig into what you had pictured in your mind before you were there. What specifically were you picturing?
Okay, well, first of all, we're so used to National Geographic, and you drive by and the animals are just sitting there, they're, and you're taking pictures and they don't care. That's not like that in a hunting session. I pictured like it would be like a shooting gallery. There would be no fair chase. But that's not the case. When you're in a hunting concession, those animals aren't used to vehicles. And if they do know a vehicle, they are running because they're used to being hunted. So it wasn't that easy as we thought, or as I had imagined. It was hard work. And the other misconception is, about the meat. A lot of people here have this misconception that people take home the horns and the head and the rest is there to rot on the ground. That is so wrong. The saying in Africa is the only thing left is a wet spot, because that's all that's left. Literally, everything from the bones to the skin to the organs, everything is utilized. And even at our camp, we were so remote that the nearest village was 4 hours away, bumping, grinding 4 hours away. And, those roads that I don't even know if you call them road, dirt tracks is more like it. So what they did was they dried the meat. Anything we weren't utilizing to eat that, we ate everything at camp, and so did the workers. But what anything was left, they had hung all across clotheslines, drying out, and they made it into jerky essentially. And so it was all taken home to villages at a later point. But throughout Africa, it's, in the South, certain areas, like you can't lump all Africa into one big lump. So each country, each nation is a little different. Some countries, the meat might get used by the landowner and sold for biltong, or it goes to their workers, but it all gets used. There's no meat that goes to waste in Africa. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I've never been yet, but it is on my bucket list, and I am kind of looking towards 2025 to go with some friends finally. And one of the things that in all my research, I've hunted for 20 some odd years now, I had that preconception of you as well, where you get out of your truck and the animal's right there and you blast it and you're done. But everything I'm reading and everybody I'm talking to says exactly what you did there, that it's a lot of work. And some of the best managed lands are the ones that are maintained by hunting concessions. But there's a video I'm kind of working my way towards here where you talk about the wet spot. And I believe it was an elephant that they had taken down, and there was a blue tarp that the animal laid down on, and it was a time lapse. And essentially it was 12 hours from this big elephant there to, as you say, a wet spot on the tarp. And the reason they used a tarp is because they wanted to be able to scrape it clean with no dirt in it. So it's quite mind-boggling when you think about just how much they are using. And as you said, it's every single bit.
And I'm telling you, Steve, it gives you chills. I mean, just hearing you talk about it, it gives me chills because, you'll hear a lot of even hunters say, oh, I don't hunt if I can't take home the meat. Well, I'm telling you, there's something even more rewarding about supplying meat to people who are protein deficient. It does so much more for your heart when you're giving it away than when you're even keeping it for yourself.
So what did you see when it came to money into the economy there? Like how does it affect them? It's pretty easy to put a tangible result on standing there and physically handing somebody a chunk of meat. But what did you see in terms of economy when it came to hunting?
The money is spread far and wide. Like touristy money, like ecotourism and general tourism, that money is desperately needed. We can't substitute one type of tourism for another. So I'm never advocating against phototourism. However, it has to be managed correctly too.
Phototourism is absolutely necessary, but must be done responsibly, and one must recognize that unless you are hiking from your front door and sleeping on the ground, there is no such thing as non-consumptive tourism.
The thing is, all that money is kind of like condensed in certain little areas where these national parks are. Hunting money gets spread far and wide, all these remote areas. So it makes it way further out where it's needed more, even so. So that's where the economy thing comes in.
Right. And that's where I want to go with this next when it comes to poaching, and what's that like there on the ground, and how does hunting fund anti-poaching?
Well, I'll tell you what, that was probably my first aha moment. The loss of habitat is the biggest threat to wildlife the world over. So anything that destroys habitat is also affecting wildlife. And you can do those things legally, but they have to go through the right process. The problem, it's hard to do that in some of these areas, and so they don't. So I learned about honey poaching and wood poaching, and then bushmeat poaching, which I had no idea about. I really didn't even think about it. But that's essentially wild game. And sometimes they poach for their own selves. Sometimes the bigger commercial, they do it for the urban areas. And that's where it's $1 billion industry, the bushmeat poaching. And that kills indiscriminately. So that's the other big thing I learned about poaching. I had real questions about how hunting a leopard or lion, which are considered threatened, why it would be good to hunt them. But Lillian explained to me that the local people do not want to live with these animals. They're dangerous. They're destructive. Imagine if your kid's walking to school, if your kid's lucky enough to go to school in these areas. Imagine them walking to school, or imagine them having to walk 2 miles to get water every day. Imagine all these things they have to do, or planning their life around when the most dangerous time to be out is. I mean, they simply, and they kill their cattle, and it's a livestock community. It's a cattle society. So if they kill cattle, that's devastating to them. It's not like they can go to the grocery store. So the biggest killer of predators is poisoning and snares by the local people. So a very few old males being taken out by the hunting industry in a well-managed way places high value on these animals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that gives them a reason to protect them. So say this animal, let's just say this lion is worth, a lot of money. And then now that helps them, gives jobs. It helps them buy medicine for their people and their cattle. It helps them buy funding to build fences so they can bring their cattle in at night. It helps them to do things. Why would they go to all this extra work and trouble if it's not helping them? That's the biggest takeaway from Africa. You have to think of local people and what's going to better their lives. The lives of wildlife and the local populations are intertwined. If one doesn't thrive, the other is not going to thrive. So they both have to benefit from conservation. And that's what you take into consideration. But yeah, that's the whole predator thing. I just had no idea how many were poisoned and killed. And I have pictures of all of this stuff. So, and it's just sad. And that doesn't make it in the community, like out in the anti-hunting world. When these people who are trying to spread the truth post pictures like that, they don't get the notoriety that somebody smiling with a lion does. It's a shame. It's the way society is, but we should care just as much about all the ones being poisoned, because they're young and old. The one picture I have is of baby lions being speared to death. They're like 3 baby cubs, not even born yet, with a mother lion there. And it's just horrific. And we have to think of those kind of things.
So you've mentioned the book a few times, and Cries of the Savannah. So I've read it 2, maybe 3 times, and it's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal read, and I think I even had it on pre-order from you, and you sent it to me personally. It was such a great read, especially for somebody who's never been to Africa, who sits on the outside and kind of takes things for granted. So what made you say, this is a story that needs telling?
Like I said, Africa changes you. You see things totally different after you spend any time there, and realize how blessed we are and how little other people in other parts of the world have. And as I was there, I came to understand if I didn't understand hunting in Africa and was willing to question it, I wasn't like an anti who was out there radicalizing it or anything like that. But if I questioned it, I knew how many other people were. And during that 3.5 weeks, I became so convinced of what I'd learned that I felt like I needed to share my story and what I learned, and to help other people understand, to try, because it's not just for the people, it's for the wildlife too. Because if these people suffer, the wildlife is ultimately going to suffer too. So I made a promise to Lillian before I left that I would try to help the world, or people like me, understand. And I didn't know what I was promising at the time. I came home and tried a couple other different things. And finally, the situation, circumstances came up, and I ended up just deciding I needed to write a book. And one thing led to another. And that's when I did. So.
And you self-published too, didn't you?
I did, because who wants me? I mean, I'm a woman, first-time author, writing a book I'm a non-hunter woman, first-time author writing a book about hunting in Africa. So you can see how a publisher might not be jumping up and down over that. But yeah, so I self-published, but luckily it's been really well received, and almost a 5-star rating on Amazon. And so, yeah, it's done really good. It was a lot of work, and I had to figure it out as I went, but I just kind of muddled my way through and figured it out.
Oh, you did it beautifully. It's so well written and just overall well done. It brings out that emotion in you. So as we wrap this up, here's one. Would you ever pick up hunting in the future?
You know, I've thought about it a lot, and I even actually took hunter's ed this fall with my granddaughter because I figured that way to go with her. And there's a huge part of me that would love to, because I think it would be just like kind of empowering and then that next step. But this was between you and me, and now everybody that's going to listen to this. But I'm so afraid that if I start hunting, does that take away from my story? Because I think one reason people connect to the book is because I am a non-hunter. So I'm worried that it won't meet as much. Does that make sense?
It does, but as a hunter, I don't see it that, like, looking at it objectively, I don't see it as losing any sort of authenticity or relationship. In fact, it might even strengthen it with the hunting community, simply because it's an evolution and a journey from where you sat to where you are now, and it's kind of a full circle. So that's it from a hunter's perspective.
Okay. Yeah, I never know because I'm very active on social media and fighting the good fight, so to speak. And so I can get on there now and say I am a non-hunter, but this is this and this. And I a lot of times start that out so that because I don't have to convince hunters.
No.
I'm trying to convince the people in the middle. There's some people they're never going to understand.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of people in the middle that we can reach if you tell it in the right way and you present hunting the way it should be and tell the whole story, not just the grip and grin pictures. Tell what all the work that went involved and all the conservation benefits, and tell the whole story, not just those pictures that the non-hunting world don't understand. All the work and time and effort that went into that smile.
Yeah.
So that's something we have to take into consideration. Hey, here's one more thing I have to talk about Africa.
Sure.
As far as hunting goes, a lot of people want to replace hunting tourism with photo tourism. They think that's the answer. Just to clarify, that is not the answer. We need both, because hunting tourism protects areas that are just kind of not suitable for photo tourism. They either have tsetse flies like our place did. I mean, no person with normal mind wants to go hang out there unless you're going after wildlife like Rick was. But tsetse flies, or they're too remote. There's not the animals they want to see. There's not enough of the animals they want to see, or it's too thickly vegetated. Not all Africa is open savanna. So if you're in an area where maybe you're only going to see a giraffe head every 30 minutes, is that what you want to pay thousands of dollars to see? Mm-hmm. So not every area is suitable for photo tourism. And it's really critical that people recognize that one is not the replacement for the other.
That's right.
We need both.
Absolutely.
But anyway, okay. So I had to get that in.
There's a shared space on the landscape for everybody, and we need to work together. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned hitting that spot in the middle. And that's what it's all about, right? We're never going to get the ones over here, just like they're never going to convince the ones over here. And by putting it, I don't want to say soft messaging, but truthful and relatable and honest messaging out there like you do, we need people like you that are great at the storytelling. So I think I was probably one of your first podcasts ever a few years ago, and you were nervous. And I can say you've come a long way. And I had your book pre-ordered, as I said, and it's a must read for anyone even remotely interested in wildlife conservation, and especially Africa. So Sue, thanks for all that you do, and thanks for joining me on Wild Talk.
Thank you for having me again, Steve. And I appreciate being here. It's nice seeing you again. And yes, you were probably my very first podcast. Oh, no, maybe I think you were my second, but still, yeah, I appreciate you having me. And it was great to see you again. Thanks for having me.